My beloved brethren and sisters, I accept this opportunity in humility. I pray that I may be guided by the Spirit of the Lord in that which I say. I have just been handed a note that says that the U.S. missile attack is underway. I need not remind you that we live in perilous times. I desire to speak concerning these times and our circumstances as members of this church. You are acutely aware of the events of September 11th, less than a month ago. Out of that vicious and ugly attack, we are plunged into a state of war. It is the first war of the 21st century. The last century has been described as the most war-torn in human history. Now we are off on another dangerous undertaking, the unfolding of which and the end thereof we do not know. For the first time since we became a nation, the United States has been seriously attacked on its mainland soil. But this was not an attack on the United States alone. It was an attack on men and nations of goodwill everywhere. It was well planned, boldly executed, and the results were disastrous. It is estimated that more than 5,000 innocent people died. Among these were many from other nations. It was cruel and cunning, an act of consummate evil. Recently, in company with a few national religious leaders, I was invited to the White House to meet with the President. In talking to us, he was frank and straightforward. The era in which we live is the fullness of times spoken of in the Scripture, when God has brought forth together all of the elements of previous dispensations. From the day that he and his beloved Son manifested themselves to the boy Joseph, there has been a tremendous cascade of enlightenment poured out upon the world. The hearts of men have turned to their fathers in fulfillment of the words of Malachi. The vision of Joel has been fulfilled.
Travis when he gets on. So as I've mentioned, I have associative memory. It's something that I created as a child because I got fed up with having to memorize so much in grade school. And despite its one weakness of my mind skipping ahead, my body catching up, not catching up, it has its advantages. And one of those advantages is to be able to associate passages of Scripture where they also have a pattern elsewhere in Scripture. And this was what got me into the church service mission to renew the footnotes. And despite my blatant, obvious skill, plus the Jesus card from President Gordon B. Hinckley, a lot of the recommendations that I had put were refused. And I've gone over the importance of not refusing my footnotes because of what Nelson has done at the pulpit of conference numerous times. And so on my mission, I had lots of time on my hands to do nothing or do something else. And I chose to go through the whole Bible, to read it from cover to cover. And I didn't finish it until I got up to Rick's College and began my second year there. But I chose the color purple. Purple rain. Yeah, a little storm blow in here an hour ago. As I was making sure I was finishing up projects just in case the power got knocked out again. It didn't. We're supposed to have rain again tonight in an hour or two. So, we'll see. For what I believed at that time was Second Coming prophecies. And I was surprised at how many I was finding in the Old Testament, as I believe it was called. As I believed it was called. And if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, then you're not aware of the Book of Mormon. That tells us right in the beginning of the book, it is in the learning of the Jews. And so it is not Christian interpretation, which means it is not Jesus Christ. Which means that because this church is the church of Jesus Christ, it is not Joseph's church. And it is not Joseph's scriptures for them to misinterpret it this badly. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about how these false prophets knew of the latter days as well. And I've gone over and explained why and how. It goes back to Heber C. Kimball. Because I've told you about how Joseph Smith Sr. was a master mason of the York Rites Lodge, which is not Scottish Rites Lodge, and was helping William Morgan write his book about a threat to America by the Illuminati. And so you've probably heard and you've misunderstood the added definition to conspiracy theory, which is incorrect and takes you far away from the true meaning of a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy is a criminal plot by more than one person. A theory is a scientifically derived plan of these conspirators, when combining the words together, as to how they accomplished their goal or planned to accomplish their goal and commit their crime. And so in our law, in our legal system, you don't have to actually carry it out. You don't have to succeed. All you have to do is plan it. And anyone and everyone involved in the planning of it are guilty of the same crime as if it had happened. And so 9/11 is such an example where President Bush saw to it to lock everybody up in Guantanamo as equally guilty of having committed the crime of 9/11. And the Patriot Act also was involved. And so there's many things involved with that, and there's many things that the church used against me in regards to that. And so it's unfortunate that Mormons don't want to believe me. They just say that I'm wrong. But I'm about to demonstrate for you that the church were speaking about the same exact things that I talk about in my videos. It's because I have associative memory. Having gone through the Bible, I became associated with the prophecies. Because I listened to conferences, I became associated with the words that came out of their mouths. No taxes. And so, yes, during 9/11, there were many people in the nation who were crying foul that the Bush family was in league with the Illuminati. And they would refer back to Poppy Bush, who had his 1,000 points of light speech and other such examples. And there's even the photo of Bush Jr., which is not really Jr., it's Herbert Walker, but I call him Bush Jr., who shook the hands of President Thomas S. Monson in the patriarchal grip, sure sign of the nail, and got spread all over the internet. Do I have it labeled correctly? Let me check. I watched The Hitman's Bodyguard yesterday, and so I got the song stuck in my head for the last couple of days. Monson. Yep, there it is. Handshake with blow up is the way it was labeled. I'm surprised it showed up with Monson. Yep. Irene's got a big old grin on his face. And it looks like it's the security guard for Monson peeking over his shoulder. Yep. So yeah, I've done the video where people have claimed that he was part of the Skull and Bone Society, and you have to be of the particular school to be a part of the Skull and Bone Society. And I can't remember. I think it was Bush that people were trying to accuse, and I found out that no, he wasn't. But, and so in 2021, as I had found out about the church's plot to conquer the world, for which I got attacked again, and because they failed to murder me that time, they at least succeeded in getting me evicted and locked up in the men's shelter for 9 months. As yes, I am still kind of new here in this apartment. And so I had a comment by a woman this morning in which she sincerely asked, I hope, about where the day that shall burn as an oven comes from. And so, yeah, I replied, Joseph Smith's second vision, quoting Malachi. And And so if you've noticed, I've been pushing the second vision all this year. And I would hope there's nobody who does not understand why. Because it's the bicentennial year. And because of my associative memory, I am the exclusive person who discovered the dates for the prophecies of Revelation for the latter days. They're star dates, and so any of us can find them if we have a stellarium program, or if we know calculus math for astronomy. I will make a confession. I did take a calculus astronomy class at the University of Lethbridge. Got my butt kicked. If it hadn't have been for the other part of the class that just was about the factual condition of the solar system without the math, I would have failed the class, but I ended up with a C because the one was able to balance out the other. And so it's similar with high school when we were forced to take computer class with driver's ed. So half of the semester was the computer class, and it was DOS back then. The other was driver's ed. And so, yeah, DOS, I failed. I couldn't understand it. It made no sense. It's a language that has no comprehensive scientific process for explanation. It's just stupid. It's whatever the programmer who designs the program is doing. And it's similar to an algorithm, which is stupid. Nobody should be using algorithms. And I watched John Oliver's show on cryptocurrency, and he mentioned about how that too was based on algorithms. I've done the videos before. Blockbuster fell because of their algorithm to run their business. Algorithms are awful because it's based on the knowledge of the programmer. And so if the programmer is a dumbass, you're going to lose your business. So YouTube, are you listening? Remember when you lost all that money for Google on the stock market? And then you thought you'd fix it by flooding your site with advertisements. Did you need an algorithm to figure that one out? Because apparently you still haven't gotten it. But anyway, so it's the latter days. It's been the latter days. Because this year is the last year of the latter days. That's why on the video I did this morning, and the one thumbnail, I recommended to Nelson the new name for the Millennial Church. Because 8 April 2024, that's it. That's the final day. And that's supposed to be the start of the millennium. Out with the old, in with the new. That's what solar eclipses are all symbolic about. And this enemy used the Bible star dates to coordinate their attack. Like I said, they've plotted this for 200 years. And when you read Wikipedia's article on Heber C. Kimball under Masonry, if you're not already in the know and you're a willing participant in the church's evil, it should scare you. Because as I'm going over past conference talks, as we're going to get to, as this is going to be a long video, I'm scared. And I already knew all this information that they knew. But I'm running the tests, even though it's confirmed it as fact. And so, yes, I have full confidence that when I go back into the conference talks, I'm going to confirm even further the facts that this church is seeking to overthrow our government. They are a branch of the Illuminati from those days. They were the ones who assassinated Joseph Smith, took over his church, and fled the country to Salt Lake Valley. And we know them and all of the branch-offs from Lucifer's symbolic star. And so, yes, the Illuminati was involved in 9/11, even though the news and our government tried to whitewash it and dismiss the whole idea as hogwash, even still to this day. Because there's a BYU professor in the science field of physics, which also uses math. In fact, math is used to explain the physical world. And he was trying to tell the nation, using the school computers at BYU, which is his job to teach physics. Well, the church stepped in and had him silenced. But he was explaining that the towers cannot fall that rapidly in a free fall unless there were other factors in the equation. That the person who did a computer model to prove that the 9/11 Commission report was true seemed to demonstrate. All he did was demonstrate that it was a free fall. He didn't factor into his computer program the laws of gravity. Force equals mass times acceleration. And so when you have various levels of the tower, you'd have a collapse, but then you'd have resistance. And then there's that physics law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And he was not factoring that into his computer model. And so that's what the physics professor was trying to explain, is that something's wrong. We're not being informed of what actually happened. And so, nonetheless, still a hot topic to this day. And nobody wants to use science to explain things. Everybody purposely misinterpreted, misdefined what a conspiracy theory is. But the leader of the Illuminati went and visited Bush. Can you guess who the leader of the Illuminati was? It wasn't Monson. He wasn't the leader. He became the leader in 2008. But he talks about it in his conference. But I don't think we're there. Well, no, we're not there yet. So, YouTube, as I've explained yesterday, is giving me grief by using their algorithms to attack me. And they're putting up a whole bunch of Mormon sites, and I want nothing to do with them. But nonetheless, it provided me with yet another video opportunity here today. The video talked about a talk from Boyd K. Packer in 2011. This was when I was locked up, so I didn't watch that session of conference. The church had locked me up for filing a petition for a redress of grievances, had me indefinitely detained under the Patriot Act of Utah's version to justify it. And so I was never seen or heard from until I was miraculously freed because of some key retirements. And so he's explaining that, let me pull up the quote. His talk was Counsel to Youth, was the title of it. Peggy Fletcher Stack, in covering the conference, sort of got the wrong information put into her article. But nonetheless, the title of her thing was Mormon Apostle Boyd K. Packer, The End Isn't Near. But then I also talked about Monson's announcement of 5 new temples. It's a small number, isn't it? Why would the church want to get so much land around the world during this time? So here's his quote from that conference talk, and I confirmed it with the church's site, with the general conferences that they have, and posted that at the bottom of the article, which I also had obtained a copy of. He said, I also obtained the video, but the church is having problems with their website tonight. But anyway, sometimes you might be tempted to think as I did from time to time in my youth. And so this was the 1600s. The way things are going, the world's going to be over with. This was 2011. I'm unaware of anything that happened in 2011. I'm aware of what happened in 2008 because I put it in my petition for redress of grievances. And sure enough, after they indefinitely locked me up, wrongfully incarcerated me, which, I'm an American citizen, and I was treated like Utah's Guantanamo Bay. Tortured for 6 years of my life. But that was 3 years earlier. The end of the world is going to come before I get to where I should be. And he says, not so. You can look forward to doing it right. Getting married, having a family, seeing your children and grandchildren. He's talking to the youth. So we'll say 10 years. 6 years later, boom, start of the latter days. Maybe even great-grandchildren. Yeah, no. He's purposely lying to you guys. As we're there. I think the rain has started up again. Maybe. So, that then triggered in my mind Gordon B. Hinckley in his 9/11 conference. See how I'm able to tie all this together? Associative memory does this. October 2001. He started off with living in the fullness of times. And was it this one or was it the Sunday one? Yeah, this is a Sunday one. So the next one that I'll be getting to. He, in the paragraph that starts, "The era in which we live is the fullness of times, spoken of in the scriptures. When God has brought together all of the elements of previous dispensations. From the day that he and his beloved Son manifested themselves to the boy Joseph." So is this a spiritual witness? No. He's referring to the first vision as a literal history. He is not even referring to it as the learning of the Jews, which are prophecies for the latter days. Right now, he, like Boyd K. Packer, is throwing out some red meat, but then pulling it back. Yeah, it is raining. You might be able to hear it as it beats upon the window pane. There has been a tremendous cascade of, wait for it, enlightenment. Poured out upon the world. Illuminati, you've come to take control. The hearts of men have turned to their fathers. You see what he did? He turned Joseph Smith's visionary prophecy of the latter days, which is right now, into literal history, and threw in the Illuminati code word. And now he's going on to the second vision. But he doesn't say the second vision. He says, the hearts of men have turned to their fathers in fulfillment of the words of Malachi. The second vision of Joseph Smith, where he is told of the prophecies of the latter days, right now. But he only refers to part of the prophecy that Joseph Smith gives in the second vision. That is from Malachi. And I did the video yesterday. And so this is where the day that shall burn as an oven comes from. This is his 9/11 talk. And he's talking to us about right now. As the leader of the Illuminati. And so even though he gave me the Jesus card to work on the footnotes, even though he granted my first ex a cancellation of our sealing, But then he goes on to say, because also Malachi, by the way, the whole second vision thing is about who our Christ is for the latter days. Thus, it's not the second coming. It is not Jesus, who again, the church is using as code for their plot to overthrow the government and establish their kingdom, New World Order. He then goes on to talk about the vision of Joel has been fulfilled, wherein he declared. It's still from the second vision. Joel chapter 2, verses 28 to the end, which I think they put in, to 32. But is that the end? Joel 28 to 32, that would be the case, because now he lies. He's talking about the latter days prophecy of Joseph Smith, but has changed it to literal history, and now he's saying that it's already happened. The vision of Joel has been fulfilled. So here's the prophecy of Joel. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. I had a dream where Gordon B. Hinckley gave me the key card to his office, among other dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids, so upon the slaves and the sex slaves, in those days I will pour out my spirit. This is what the church is going to do with their kingdom. Men will be slaves, women will be sex slaves in polygamy. And yes, child brides. Not for the boys, for the girls, because they're the breeders. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The tetrad of the sun shall be darkened, moon turned into blood, and stars fall from heaven. I have yet to do that for the prophets' deaths, but I don't know. I've got way too much stuff that I'm far behind on. I really could use some help. But the great and terrible day of the Lord come, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. The day that shall burn as an oven? The tetrad sure indeed occurred before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Because Perry Packer Scott died and set in motion the successor for Monson when he died. Which I'm surprised, they put him on emeritus status, sort of. They still claim that he was in charge and was signing documents. He had dementia and asthma, or not asthma. Is it arthritis? No, it's not arthritis. Diabetes. The weakness of associative memory. And so he's like Holland, and yet only Holland has been put on emeritus status. Monson was deceived to still be running the church when he no longer was attending meetings, no longer going to Temple Square. And so who was running the church? Who was signing all the documents? Nelson, do you know that you had committed corporate fraud by doing that? I guess you don't care who's going to stop you, who's going to dare to molest or make afraid, huh? And so on, it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. Pay attention to this. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. I had a person make a comment, or I didn't make her make a comment, but she had made a comment the other day talking about how it's great that the prophecies of the Jews being restored and the temple being rebuilt will come to pass. I know they're looking for it, but Joseph Smith, through the Book of Mormon, is telling them that they need to look to his Christ. Joseph says that Christ is the learning of the Jews, but in section 103, verse 16, specifies for the Jews who he will be. And unfortunately, the Jews aren't hearkening to their Christ either, because they don't even know their scriptures well enough, even though they know their scriptures better than Mormons know theirs, that the Christ is here. The Jews know that they need to have a checklist for their Christ. Mormons don't. But they aren't fully aware. They're suspicious that because of things that are going on in the world, especially since 2020, that there's a similar pattern with Moses and the Exodus, which is the direct symbolism of the latter days 8-year period of time. That's why the Passover is 8 days, and why the Christians replaced it with Passion Week of 8 days to be anti-Semitic. And so Joseph Smith tells us who the Christ is. He's Mormon from the Great and Abominable Church, to save Mormons from the Great and Abominable Church, if and only if they hearken to him. And so we're witnessing that Mormons are not doing a very good job, are you? You're not even listening anymore. You've already been offended and you left. And so why am I doing a long video? But Joseph Smith warns, Mormons who will not hearken will be utterly destroyed. And he does a little play on words to make it challenging for us. We have to actually do study to figure out that it's utterly destroyed, as I did in the video yesterday. But 19 July 1840, which is in the Joseph Smith papers, I found it. You guys have all heard the myth that Joseph said that the Constitution would hang by a thread. Well, that came from 19 July 1840. And it's not thread. On the brink or verge of destruction is actually what it was. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I don't think it's necessary. But he talks about the mountain cities of Zion and Jerusalem. He's referring to Joel. Mount Zion and Jerusalem. They are on mountains in Jerusalem. But Joel was talking about the latter days. And so he's using Jerusalem as a symbol, a type and shadow for the latter days events. And I've explained to you where that's to be located, and Joseph does say that it is in Illinois, not Missouri, and he even tells us, you guys have assumed that it's Missouri. You're wrong. It's not Missouri. It's Illinois. And because it hasn't been published by Brigham Young, who is called Judas in that same passage, or same scripture, sermon, we don't have this document until now. And Mormons won't even bother to look it up. Nope. I have seen that apologists have tried to excuse what Joseph Smith was saying to not implicate Brigham Young. But it's very clear. Joseph Smith symbolically represents himself as Jesus, talking to his 12, of which Brigham Young was the president of, and calls them Judas. It's very clear who Joseph is referring to. And that is why Brigham Young did not publish it. He did not like it, Sam I am. And so, now you get a glimpse of what Hinckley was up to here. What are you doing? Who programmed this? Alright, so now we need to... Are you kidding me? Are you through? Can I proceed? The times in which we live. Well, video's still having issues, but I did get the video. It's likely I'll put them in here. And so yes, this is where he talks about it. I have just been handed a note that says that a U.S. missile attack is underway. I need not remind you that we live in perilous times. I desire to speak concerning these times and our circumstances as members of the church. You are acutely aware of the events of September 11th, less than a month ago. Out of that vicious and ugly attack, we are plunged into a state of war. Congress never declared war. It is the first war of the 21st century. Recently, in company with a few national religious leaders, I was invited to the White House to meet with the president, give unto him the second token of the Melchizedek priesthood, the patriarchal grip or sure sign of the nail. In talking to us, he was frank and straightforward. I am the decider. Mission accomplished. Daddy, I'm the president. I'm very upset about that election. To have another Bush brother involved, because one of them was in charge of security, which has been wiped clean from all records. The other one was governor of Florida, where the decision was made for president. And so, yeah, you can see my concern. So, was there anything? I think there was. Skimming through it, I think it was near the end. I cannot dismiss from my mind the grim warnings of the Lord as set forth in 24th chapter of Matthew. There's one. He says, I cannot forget the great lesson of Pharaoh's dream of the fat and lean kine and of the full and the withered stalks of corn. And he does tell Mormons to get yourself prepared with physical necessities for any such event. Now, I do not wish to be an alarmist. I do not wish to be a prophet of doom. Amos 3:7. It's your job, if you were a true prophet. I am optimistic. I do not believe the time is here when an all-consuming calamity will overtake us. I earnestly pray that it may not. Oh, he saved us! There is so much of the Lord's work yet to be done. Yeah. Lord's work, huh? Jesus' work? Interesting. He says, we will not place the church in debt. We will tailor what we do to the resources that are available. And that's why the temples were only built when there was a justification among the elders. Let's get back to seeing me on the screen here. How grateful I am for the criminal law of tithing. The Perpetual Immigration Fund was shut down by the United States because it was a criminal operation of tithing. It is the Lord's law of finance. See, when you know the truth, going back and rereading and re-listening to these guys, it's scary. Because they're outright confessing of their crimes. And for Mormons who refuse to study and learn the truth, and are in denialism, who claim that I'm just being a conspiracy theorist, under the wrong definition of a conspiracy theorist, you guys don't get it. You don't want to get it. Or you are complicit, and you do get it, and you're just wanting to silence me. Helaman chapter 6, verse 24. But yeah, Malachi chapter 3 is will a man rob God? Joseph Smith says, chapter 3 and chapter 4, for the latter days. And so here he is again, quoting from Malachi concerning tithing. I remind you that those who do not pay tithing, but who should, that the Lord has promised marvelous blessings. Really? You mean a protection racket? He that is tithe shall not be burned at his coming. Ta-da! See how my associative memory works? The day that shall burn as an oven. And this year is the bicentennial year. this year is the final year of the latter days. And as the day that shall burn as an oven is in the latter days, before the millennial reign of peace, it's happening. And instead of 9/11, which has been a favorite date for the church since Heber C. Kimball, 9/11/1826, which is what got Joseph Smith Sr. to take charge of organizing a group with William Morgan's book to warn of the enemy's plot to overthrow America in these latter days. Yes, it's the Book of Mormon. And how frustrating it is that I can't get people to hearken, as I've got so much work to be done, and the church, having been planning this for 200 years, they're finishing up their work in preparation for it, as I mentioned earlier this morning in the video. They're finishing things up in preparation for this. And so, yes, Mountain Meadows Massacre on 9/11. Yeah. So, interesting how Joseph Smith in his second vision kept repeating September 22nd. 2 sets, 4 times. 22nd. 2 repeated twice. Which 22 is 11 plus 11. 4 sets of 11. (9/11). The 22nd of September this year is the bicentennial year, and we're in the last year of the latter days. Now, as I also said in a video this morning, I think, or was it yesterday, that I purposely exposed the plot of the church because I noticed that I can have it postponed, forcing Nelson to go to plan B, C, D, E, F, G. So yes, that would be great if I could postpone the day that shall burn as an oven, which they've been plotting for 200 years. Not likely to happen. But, as I also have been telling you lately, I'm concerned that we may not have an October conference, like we had an October conference in 2001, because it's after September 22nd. But you see the protection racket that he's doing here. You pay your extortion money of tithing, and you won't be burned at his coming. There's no guarantee of this. The prophets are not being transparent. They're using code, as I have to keep doing the videos about Nelson's talks. And Mormons still are refusing to accept that Nelson is using code to reveal unto you that you're supposed to be obedient to him. That these are the latter days meant that these are the last years of the latter days. The 8 years. When he says in the coming days, he means that he's implemented a plot that is to be taking place. He did it when he first got into office in that April conference. He again repeated it just last year. And so you have to pay attention to what happens after he says these things. Because the church is involved. And I did the videos, and you don't believe. And it's sad that Mormons who believe the church is true don't even want to believe me. Because you're supposed to hear me and misinterpret me. You're supposed to go, oh, Jesus is coming. I better make sure I'm paying a full tithe. And you don't even do that. You still say nobody knows the day or the hour of his coming. And I'm not going to study my scriptures. You're not even cramming for the latter-day scriptures. Dear God. But yeah, when the Tetrad happened, Mormons were like, is this it? Is this it? Monson came out and said, no. He lied to you. And so, yes, Mormons have fallen for it. And I've told about how a patriarch in the former apartment that I was evicted from had told me, as we were waiting for our wives to get out of Relief Society, that he'd been around for a long time, obviously. And he's a patriarch, remember? Patriarchal blessings talk about the latter days, the second coming, even in many Mormons' patriarchal blessings. And my mom has told me that she had dated several guys who claimed that they were going to be the president of the church, according to the patriarchal blessing. Nope. Not a single one of them. I guess they weren't faithful. Guess they didn't pay their tithing. Right? Is that the qualification? But I'm sure it has nothing to do with not having authority to succeed Joseph Smith. But, yeah, they didn't stop them from knowing of the prophecies. Because they know of what they're plotting to do. And the Book of Mormon reveals this to us. But they don't interpret the Book of Mormon as symbolic code of the latter-day plot. Instead, they tell us it's literal history and Jesus is real. And that it's Jesus who will do all the work to overthrow the government. So it was Benson who said that the first coming of Jesus to the Americas is a pattern of the second coming. And so then Mormons would do the charts, doing the comparison between the two. No. These are the prophecies of the second coming, which is the coming of the latter days. They've led you astray. Even though, if you actually did your study and research, you'd figure this out like I did, even though you don't have associative memory. And so he's saying that, yeah, we thought in our day that the second coming was happening and it didn't happen, and I'm not expecting it to happen now, because I had revealed to the ward about the solar eclipse and how it was a fulfillment of scriptural prophecy, and September 23rd, 2017, from Revelation chapter 12. And so he thought he would put me in my place as a patriarch to tell me I'm wrong. Oh, the poor people who got patriarchal blessings from him. Dear God. But also, there was another one who invited the Mormons from our apartment building to dinner at their place. And he had told me in one such dinner that Gordon B. Hinckley had given the talk that I had already gone over with you, that he had said that we've already had it all fulfilled. And so it's done and over with, and so I'm wrong. So, yeah. And so this is very dangerous, because Nelson, and here's what I was wanting to bring up from the times in which we live. He talks about the welfare program, but then goes into, now all of us know that war, contention, hatred, suffering of the worst kind are not new. The conflict we see today is but another expression. Again, he's purposely misleading you, of the conflict that began with the war in heaven. I quote from the book of Revelation. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Anybody know where that's from? I do. I have associative memory. I even gave you a hint right before I brought it up. But he's not referring to that again. Again, he goes to the passages that if Mormons would have gone in their study and research to learn more about, would have figured it out. But he doesn't, and Mormons don't. It's Revelation chapter 12, where I just told you the date. It's the beginning of the latter days. And he brings it up. He knows. They knew, because it has been plotted for 200 years. And he's using it in connection with 9/11. And again, let me remind you, hoping that repetition will instill it in your memory. September 22nd, 9/22 is the bicentennial date of Joseph Smith's second vision, of which he goes over all of this. That's what he's referring to, because he goes over Joel. He talks about the day that shall burn as an oven, that Mormons will be cut off if they don't hearken and abandon the church. And says that there's other stuff that he's not going to mention. Just as Nephi was told, don't mention it, John in Revelation mentions it. He's telling us about the latter-day dates. Revelation 19 is 8 April 2024. The wedding supper feast of the Lamb, where it talks about an angel stands in the sun on the back of the white horse. 8 April 2024. This is why I've been doing my videos all these years. I started my website on the 23rd of September 2017 to have it post videos as well as audio. I did the business package, but 2 years later the church shut it down. Because my pictures were all over the internet. And it was that same year that Nelson comes out and says, hey, we've rigged it with all of these website services, Google, Microsoft, etc., to fix the algorithms so that Travis is suppressed. Now, that's what they did to shut me down. They invest in the stock of the company that bought out my website. And sure enough, the very next day after I filed my petition for redress of grievances, of which Pharaoh said no, sure enough, they attacked. We're already at an hour and 10 minutes. The majority of you are no longer listening. The great deceiver, the son of the morning. He just keeps going. Dear God, the book of Moses and the book of Abraham shed further light concerning this great contest. Satan would have taken the agency from Mormons and taken unto himself all the credit, the honor and glory. That's their plot. But he puts it in the context that the premortal existence was real and literal history, rather than the code for their plot to overthrow the government and establish their kingdom with servants and handmaidens. Oh, guys, why won't you listen? Why won't you believe? Why won't you prepare? Instead, you argue and disagree and spew hate and threaten to murder me.